Welcome back to Women, Men, and Relationships. I'm JJ Fluzanes.
And I am Doug Sandler.
And this week, we're going to talk about what, Doug Sandler?
Hi. I forget. I've been traveling for the last 12 days. I'm a little bit loopy right now, so I literally fell asleep in the amount of time it took you to go and get the recorder and come back here.
I know. I wanted to bring you guys a show because I didn't want to miss a week. And last show, we talked about David Data's Enlightened Sex, the second session on the first disc. Well, we haven't had any time to do any other homework. Doug's been out of town for over a week.
We haven't even had time to have sex.
We haven't had time for anything because we haven't been together for over a week.
Oh, God.
So,
well, at least I haven't had sex. I'm hoping you haven't either.
Correct.
That's good.
Correct.
That's good. That's good.
One of the things that I thought we could talk about today, or that you could talk about, your trip back home this time, because you had 2 gigs on the weekends. I was originally supposed to be there, but then our gig got moved to a different date. You used your time very wisely.
Oh, totally wisely.
In what I thought, or what I think is closing circles, having completions, meeting with people, having one-on-one conversations, doing a little bit of personal healing. So from a guy's perspective, I wanted you to just, because you're a guy, not because a guy would do it any differently, but I kind of wanted you to talk about what has happened to you in the past week. What are the things that you've accomplished? How do you feel about all of that?
That feels like a lot of responsibility on me right now. Why don't you ask me questions and I'll answer questions for you? Or I can share at least, let me give you the thumbnail sketch of what was happening this week. So I went back home, and as you said, we didn't have any business between the two of us as far as training that we were doing. So I took the entire week. I set up appointments with the people that kind of separated from me in the separation of my marriage. And I closed a lot of loops this week, a couple specifically that were really good. You know how you have friends as couples as friends when you're married, and then when you either get separated or divorced, or if you're with a significant other and you guys split, it's a really uncomfortable situation. Who gets the friends? Who gets the friends? In this particular case, I was just concerned that the guy of the couple I was friends with, and I wasn't friends with him before I was in my marriage. So when we left the marriage, I was concerned that relationship was going to go a little bit south because his wife is really good friends with my ex. And so I wanted to close the loop. It's been 6 months since I've had any conversation of substance other than just, hope you're okay. I never got together with him, never had a drink, never really spent any time talking about it. And so that was one relationship. That was, and I'll get a little bit more into the details with that with some questions. So that was the friendship that I put back together again. The other side of it was a couple of relationships within my family that had really taken a tough turn. One of them was, or is, my brother. Actually, 2 brothers. One is my biological brother, and one is my stepbrother of 47 years, so I just call him my brother. So those 2 relationships, and I really also felt like I put together, although I really did feel a strong connection with my mom through this entire separation, it was really good to spend the week. I was with her the entire week at her house, and we had a chance to really have some great in-depth conversations just about life, about her adventures since my stepfather passed away a few years ago, since my marriage broke up. So those several relationships, am I missing any? Am I missing any that you think of?
No, I mean, we can throw in the family dinner on Sunday, but that was more about your brother at the end. But more of I really enjoyed hearing your mom sort of defend your life, position, and choices by saying that, why would he come back?
Why would he come back? He's gone to California. It's great there. I visited him there. I encourage you all to go visit him there. You would not want to come back either. So those relationships did a lot of loop closing. I don't know if that was specifically on okay, well, how is this going to happen? I didn't have a plan. I know a lot of times you kind of like will have some scripts that you might even have in your head. You've done some preparation. And I'm not that way. I went about it like, I'm not really sure what I'm about to step into, but let's step into this and let's see, am I stepping into a pot of gold or am I stepping into a pile of dog shit? And I was pleasantly surprised that I guess I wasn't pessimistic about the outcomes of the meetings because ultimately what I was looking for was not approval from anyone. That was not at all what I was looking for. And if you're out there and you're trying to close the loops on some relationships that you had left behind because of a failed marriage or a breakup, don't necessarily look for their approval. I mean, especially don't look for their approval. But if you... I hear a cat throwing up.
Yeah, we're outside in case you hear funny sounds. And that was good because Domino's been eating grass. And
Probably
now
she's
throwing it up. Perfect. It's outside. I love it. She's not doing it inside. Cool. Continue.
Nice. I hope my shoes are clear.
Well, we'll see. They're washable.
So I don't think that you're looking for approval from these people that are in your life, or you shouldn't. But what you should look for is what type of healing and what type of result, or was the result something that you were hopeful for? How did you feel about the result of those meetings? And I wasn't married to the result of any of the meetings, but I felt really good that I had the meetings because I think it gave me the ability to, like you said earlier, kind of close the loop on the relationship status of all of those people.
Well, and you got a little bit of closure in that you had one-on-one, face-to-face conversations with people, and you allowed them to express their thoughts and feelings, which when I'm in a centered place, I totally get and understand. But on the other side, I get a little triggered hearing about it, only because I just think it's ridiculous when people say that I'm upset about your choices about your life. I just think it's the most fucking ridiculous thing in the fucking world.
Well, one of the conversations that I had was still pretty judgmental, and I just had to put that in the category of this is somebody that is not going to agree with my action items and my decisions and my beliefs no matter what. So I had to, in my opinion, it was really therapeutic for me to, although I do have some back pain as a result, I think, of that meeting. It was pretty therapeutic for me to sit in that meeting and listen and watch the expressions and watch and listen to his phrasing, and the words that he was using were very focused on, you did this, so it made me unhappy. That's all I kept hearing. I kept hearing that over and over and over again. And I used the line that you have used many times. And I actually said it to him gently. I said, I love you, but don't you know that your opinion of me is really none of my business? And it really isn't. Really, the way that people think about you, they're only putting your decisions and your actions through a filter that they are interpreting on their own. And there obviously something that was either a trigger for him or a wound of his that was still open from one of his relationships that apparently he felt like I should be acting differently because of his belief system, and I didn't feel that way. And I did sit through it and I did listen, but then I just kept moving on to the conversation, and I basically said to him, I appreciate your words. However, we're just going to agree not to agree on what you think I should be doing.
We're sitting outside. I know I've already said that because of Domino throwing up. And and so in case you heard sort of the helicopter above or the birds, I'm sure
it's kind of like last week we were in Cabo. This week we're out sitting by poolside. This is good. This is a good life that we live. I really do think it's a good life.
Well, just in case there's another plane or two that goes by, because obviously we're near the fires and not that close, but close enough that there will be air traffic, hopefully trying to help the firefighters put out that fire. But, I'd had a conversation with a friend this morning about his marriage ending and what had happened there. And while, part of me, when I take the role of like therapist, I'm not a trained therapist, but I take the role of therapist, coach, trainer, or even just when I'm, presenting, I'm very much like whatever. It's, your life, you get to choose it. I'm a little more neutral. When it comes back into my life and it affects me a little bit more, and it gets bombarded with stuff, when there's like multiple people who are having a reaction to someone else's life, it makes me I get a little agitated, because to me it's what I've spent sort of my life studying. And it's the fact that your brother's reaction to your life has nothing to do with you. And what people and the majority of people in the world don't understand that.
Okay, but we have a choice when somebody's opinion and the things that they would do in response to the circumstances in their life, when they start to share that with you, you have one of two choices. You can either shut them down and not listen, or you can listen to them with the ear of, this is their perspective. This is not an attack on me. They think they're trying to help. A number of times in the conversation, he was offering his advice by saying, I'd like to offer you some advice. And I kept thinking, I'm really not looking for your advice. But if you want to phrase it that way. So I tuned out of the expression, I would like to share some advice with you. And because I still am perceived as the little brother. And what's so interesting and so funny about it is I'm 53 years old. And it's like, at what point do you leave that you're the little brother behind? Apparently, to my big brother, I never leave it behind. So in that particular case, when he would say the words, I'd like to share some advice with you, or I'm providing you advice, it was like, should I be honored to have gotten the advice? So when he was saying that, I would just, okay, well, feel free to share the advice with me, but I'm not really asking you for your advice. And then when it came down to it, what was really great about it, the whole situation, when it came down to it, the closing of the loop in this relationship, because we were talking about personal relationships, the closing of the loop of this entire relationship was left up to me. He felt like I was not handling my relationships properly, my personal relationships. And I said to him, you've got to understand that we wouldn't be in this meeting right now had I not been the one that made this meeting happen. You weren't calling me, telling me, let's get together, we need to put this behind us. I was the one that said that to him. So for me to sit in a situation where I'm putting the meeting together, I'm the one guiding, at least not the conversation, but guiding the purpose of the meeting, and he wants to share advice with me, which I thought was a little bit ironic. But to each his own.
Right, and now you have back pain. So, because you handled it very well, and better than I would have, honestly, because although I took a lot of time in my own family to come to terms with, to understand, to have compassion for. And I think for me, the bottom line that I want to remind people of is, if you're upset about someone else's choices, about their life, it is a very clear indication and clue that you are avoiding your own. You are not paying attention to your own life. If you are in a tizzy about someone else's life, you are upset by their choices. It bothers you. You can't stop talking about it. You are focused on it. That, my friends, is an addiction. And for anyone that's ever been through a recovery program or a Friends of Recovery program like Al-Anon, they will tell you.
I kept saying over. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go.
I was going to say, I kept saying over and over and over again, I'm living out my journey right now. These, if you feel, are mistakes. These are my mistakes to make. I'm not looking for you to help me fix my mistakes or correct my mistakes. Once I've built this house and created these circumstances, I'm the one that I'm obligated to either fix them or ignore them or do whatever I want. I'm not asking him to help solve my problem. I didn't go back to him and say, hey, can you do me a favor? I'm really in a jam here. Can you help me out? Can you give me some advice how I wasn't there. So anybody, which is everybody in my family, feels like they are in a position, or most people in my family, especially the ones that have kind of alienated, it felt like either I've alienated them or they've alienated me. The ones that I'm having the most issues with are the ones that want to provide me with their explanation of what I'm doing and why I'm doing it wrong. And so for those people that are out there in your life that are doing that to you, just know that you've got to rise above The reason that you are in the position that you're in is probably because of some of the decisions that you've made in your life. You now have to deal with that.
Right, but it's no one else's business
Right.
to have an opinion about what you choose to do about your life.
Well, we can't tell somebody to have an opinion or not to have an opinion. They can have an opinion. It's just a matter of whether you're going to. I chose to. I could have ignored the entire scene. I could have said, no, I'm not getting together with either one of my brothers. No, I'm not going to have any kind of relationship with these friends. I could have said that. That's not what I was looking for. And I wasn't looking for their approval. And if they didn't want to meet with me, they didn't have to meet with me.
No, I agree. You were the bigger person, and you followed your heart, and you wanted to sit down with people, and you wanted to just connect. It was very simple, and you didn't have an agenda, and you didn't have, like you said, a script or anything, and you just sort of let it flow and let it be, and that's great. And I would encourage people to, if you're going to have these conversations with people and you do want to come to more of a resolution, the way to do that is in the work of, again, Marshall Rosenberg and nonviolent communication, because when you can actually get to the real root. So let's talk about my friend right now that's going to be going through a divorce, and his wife is screaming at him. I mean, her situation is she's a very, very angry person. She's not an angry person. She's someone who's repressed her anger of being abandoned by her dad for most of her life, and she has done all kinds of different behaviors that basically numb her feelings. And of course, she's never dealt with any of that, and now they're separating and getting divorced, and so now he's the punching bag, and he's smart enough to know that it's really not about him, and he's calm, cool, and collective. And we talked today, and I said, what would be best is for you when she's yelling at you, and he's not a fighter, and he doesn't get very angry. He gets agitated, but he's not an angry guy. And I said, just say, it sounds like you're really angry. Do you think you have you're feeling angry because your need for blank isn't being met? And he went, that's Marshall Rosenberg. He had taken some time and actually watched a bunch of videos from Dr. Marshall Rosenberg and nonviolent communication, and he asked his wife to do the same years ago, and she watched a video, but he thought it was the best thing ever. And I reminded him of the work today, sent him the podcast I did on Fit to Love, and and he's going to do it, because there's really fighting with people just fuels the flame and keeps it going back and forth.
Hey, at least you could get her to at least listen to a little bit of it. I remember as soon as I noticed some challenges in my marriage, I bought the 5 Love Languages, Gary Chapman, and I left copies of it just strategically around the house.
Did you ask her to read it?
Yes, she didn't want to read it.
Yeah. Well, they've been together a really long time, and they have, for the sake of the kids, too, tried to work it out a couple other times. So, but the point being for today's show, not that I had a point going into this, it was more of the explanation and the sharing of, that I thought it was really big of you to go home and have these meetings and meet with people, and and because you're very heart-centered in that way and wanting to connect. And so I definitely say bravo to you, and it was a really nice thing to hear that you felt complete with those meetings, even though, again, they didn't all have resolutions. They didn't all have
They didn't need to. They didn't need to. For me, it was a... So I'm going to say this in a way that might appear to be sterile, but it really isn't. These were tasks that were on my list that I wanted to make sure that I had taken care of them. And I'm not saying that I wanted to just check a box, but I did want to accomplish these things. And you know how sometimes there are these things that are out there that you have as your personal goals, and you say, okay, I want to do this, and you just never get to it? Well, these weren't going to be those things. I was going to make sure that these were things that I had taken care of. And while I had this week in Baltimore, I thought, what a great opportunity for me to actually make these things come together. And interestingly enough, I also reached out to my ex to ask her if she would like to get together as well. And
I wanted you to.
Well, because you wanted me to.
I asked you. I said, "Can you see her when you're there?" And you said,
"Oh, I don't even remember that. Maybe that was something in my head." And certainly, it's great. I'm glad you suggested it. but I was not looking for your advice.
You didn't even think about it. I told you. I asked you to do it.
Okay. Would you like to take credit for the lack of meeting that I had with her too?
No. No, but I'm the one that said, I would like you to, do you have time? Would you be willing to see her? And you said, sure. Why? And I said, because I think it's a good gauge of your healing to see what happens when you guys get together.
Okay, so whenever that initial message went out to her asking her if she would be open to getting together, I think there was a red flag for her. The first thought that she has was, uh-oh, why? Why does he want to get together with me? That was one of the things that she said back in a text message. Why? Why? Is there a reason? For a reason, I think she said. And there really wasn't a reason. It was just so that I could get in front of her to feel what I was going, to see what my reaction was for my own self understanding. And through a series of text messages that we exchanged, it made me feel like, because she said it, that she was not ready. And I respect that she wasn't ready to have that meeting yet. We have been apart for 6 months. I am ready to have that meeting, and she wasn't. And I respect that she wasn't in a place to have that meeting. But it did make me understand that I have moved far beyond where I was a few months ago, where even the thought of that meeting would have been extremely challenging for me.
Yeah. You did good. That's why I had kind of requested it, if you were okay with it, because there's a certain level of healing that can happen when you're not in your same environment and you have not had to deal with the reminders of the same environment, of the same people, the same places as much because you don't live there anymore. When you go back, you do have some of those, but it's very few and far between. So you're not being tested on a regular basis to truly, where are you with what's happened? Because it's much easier to leave the situation, be in a new environment where you have no memory or attachment, and feel free and feel better and feel no pain because you don't have any memories.
And while I would not say that I am completely pain-free, because there are things that I get this little skip of the heart, a little anxious, a little like butterflies when I think about some things, or put in a certain situation where I feel like this would be something that she would have done or we would have done together or whatever, or I see a picture or I see a something. There are those brief moments where I know that I'm not 100% there yet, but I can tell you I am so much further than I was just a short time ago and feeling great about it. This week of meetings with people that were from my, let's call it my past life, my pre-breakup days, those meetings really helped stabilize and, regardless of the outcome again, help put me in a more confident position and a more a strengthened position that I had those meetings. So I feel like this week really did a lot for my healing. It did a lot for my self-esteem. It did a lot for my growth. And let's continue.
Yeah. No, you're doing great. And I wanted to share that you did that because I think for a lot of men, and please forgive me if I'm overgeneralizing, but I would say for most men, they just avoid it. And women want to point the finger and make you wrong. So, again, I'm overgeneralizing, but women want to get together because here's the thing, please don't do this. And if you do it, don't tell me unless you want help with it. Don't say, I'm just going to get this off my chest. Okay, because all that means is you are having an emotion that's not about the person you think it's about, and you're using them as a punching bag to get feelings out that you think's about them, but it's not. And it never, ever makes you feel better because what you're really looking for is some kind of resolution that you're not going to get because you're blaming the other person. So don't say, I just have to get this off my chest. If you want to just get something off your chest, go to see a fucking therapist or call a coach. Work it out. Figure out, instead of getting it off your chest, take it inside for a second and say, why do I feel this way? What did I interpret that to mean? What is it that I need? And how can I get those needs met? And does it really have to do with the other person, or is it really about me? That would be the most constructive way to actually move about your life with your feelings.
I oftentimes think, though, that the person that is saying that, I just need to get this off my chest, and can I offer you advice? I really do think that they feel like they are doing you a service by sharing their feelings and their opinions with you, because this is how everybody thinks. Because that kept coming up over and over and over again in this meeting, one meeting that I had with a family member. And what he kept saying was, I would like to offer you some advice. I want to share this with you. This is important. This is because this is how it should be. And it's like, holy shit. Did he just should me?
Yeah, he shoulded you. And here's what's really funny in a backhanded way. All those people who think they're doing you a service because they're giving you their advice that you didn't ask for, if you were to turn around and do the exact same thing to them, they would hate it. They wouldn't want it. They'd reject it. They'd say, who do you think you are? They would not respond the way they think you should respond. So here's what I want to tell y'all. Everybody's on their own journey. Leave them the fuck alone. Deal with yourself. You have your own shit to worry about. Figure out your own relationships. And if you're triggered by somebody else, deal with it. It's your stuff. It's not about them. And take it as a lesson, take it as a mirror, and utilize it for what it's there for, to help you grow, to help you expand, and to help you heal. When you try to ask someone else to be different, you're allowed to be concerned for people, but really bring that home. Is it really about them? Are you really concerned about them? Are you concerned about the way somehow it affects you or it makes you look bad? One quick story about that. My mother has always been someone who does thank you notes. And I remember a time when maybe it was birthday gifts or maybe it was, I don't know if it was Christmas or birthday, but she kept on me. Did you send thank you notes? Did you send thank you notes? And I said, no, Mom, I didn't do it yet. And I was an adult. I was living out of the house and I finally got it. I said, wait a minute. This isn't about me. This is about you. You don't want to look like a bad mother because your daughter didn't respond to people who gave her a gift. I said, this is bullshit. I'm not sending them. And that is what that became, because it wasn't my idea. It was about how she would look. And so I just invite you to take notice of when you are asking other people to behave in a way that pleases you. What is that really about? Because you really can't control other people. So it's really, I think, a practice that you might want to consider to just start dealing with your own shit, because it lets everyone else off the hook. And it ultimately, you can get your shit your needs met faster because you're not trying to manipulate everybody else to do it the way you want it to do so you think you're safe or you feel good or you feel acknowledged. Go within. Take responsibility for that. And know that you can make an impact. You can be an example. You can come at it with love. Doug did a great job this past week. My friend who I talked to yesterday is doing a great job. I sometimes do a great job. I definitely do a great job when it's not in my own family. But when it's in my own family, of course, I have my own triggers. So, we're not always great in that respect.
So all go forth and prosper.
And if closure, if being seen, being heard, making a connection, I think for you it's about feeling better about yourself. I think you did these to say, I made effort. I can connect with them and let them know I love them by making this meeting, and it's okay that I'm not seen or heard or understood or agreed with.
Right.
To you, the most important thing was making the effort,
right,
showing them you cared, and then being able to walk away and you feel good about yourself saying, I made the step, I made the effort. No one can come back and say that I abandoned them. I made the effort. And what happens next will be, will tell us where this relationship and those relationships are going to go.
All right. Well, that was good. This was a quick episode.
Yeah, now you got to get on a bike and leave me again for another couple of days. So stay tuned.
By the time you're listening to this, I will be back again.
This is true. And if there's anything, I know I get some messages from you guys and things that you appreciate about things we've talked about. And if there's something else that you want us to address, not necessarily from a position of expertise, because, we're both going through things for the first time.
Some of us the second time.
Okay, second time for the actions, first time for your awareness.
It's like the first.
Right, and now you're a little more conscious. So I'm going to say that some things you're experiencing for the first time.
Very true. And one of the meetings I did have when I was back home was I did get to have a nice lunch with my first ex-wife, and that was actually an extremely pleasant experience. For those in our community that don't know, I was married twice, and in my first marriage I had 2 kids. I now have a 22 and a 26-year-old, and we have kids together, so it makes it nice when things can be pleasant. And it was a nice, pleasant lunch. It's the last lunch I'm going to have to buy for her, though.
Yeah, and again, you do a really good job of being patient with some behaviors that I have no patience for. So, but we'll talk about that in a cultural way in another episode, because it's not just cultural.
Yes.
It happens across the board, and it's not right.
All right, let's wrap it up here.
All right, talk to you guys next week.